Finding out that your partner has cheated on you is a special kind of hell. And I guess I don't have to tell you that. Sorry. Now, obviously, with most of that pain, there's not a whole lot you can do. You know, your partner has made choices that have caused you this pain. And it's pain that, unfortunately, you have to experience. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing at all that you can do. So in my case, I was all consumed by the emotions surrounding the affairs for the better part of a year. And it was only in retrospect, once I was several years out and I had gained some perspective and had done most of the healing, that I realized that I was inadvertently making that torment, making that hell worse than it had to be. So what I'm going to share with you today are the ways that I mishandled being cheated on and ended up causing myself more pain, so that hopefully you can be aware of these behaviors and maybe modify them in yourself so that you don't have to experience more pain than you have to. The first way that I magnified my pain was through busyness. And it's no surprise that we are prone to busyness when we've been cheated on. It serves a few purposes. First, well, when you're busy, you're distracted. You know, one of the hardest things to do is to slow down and just be with the pain, be with the loss. And so we keep ourselves busy so that we don't have to look too closely. The other thing with busyness is it feels so important at the time. Now, here's how my busyness manifested, and this is a pretty common one, you might relate. My busyness manifested as basically where I self-appointed as a private investigator. I decided that I needed to gather as much information as I possibly could about my then husband and about the woman that ended up being his other wife. And so I obsessed over finding this information. I literally treated it like a part-time job. I would put in a full day at work and come home and get on my computer and find out meaningless details like her parents' names, her specific degrees. You know, I looked at the Google Earth image of the house that she was in when my ex moved in with her. Meaningless details. But I convinced myself that I needed to know this information. Now, in my case, there were pending court cases, both the civil divorce case, but also a criminal trial against him. And so it was really easy to excuse all of this behavior as though I was really needed as a private investigator. But here's the truth. Not one of those facts even made it into the file that the attorneys had. And those files were never even heard by a judge. So it was really, really just a waste of time. But it did keep me busy. So be aware of the fact if you're using busyness as an excuse to keep you distracted from the pain and to kind of give you a sense that you're doing something important. Because here's the truth of it. You can survive slowing down. You can survive just being with the pain. And until you are ready to just recognize it and accept it and see it and face it, it's not going to go anywhere. So all of that busyness, it's really just keeping you stuck, and it's just delaying the inevitable. And really, it's probably not making you very happy as you're going through it either. So just let that busyness go. So when you find out that your partner has cheated on you, you probably feel like you've been blindfolded on a trip in a runaway train. You feel like you have absolutely no control, not only over what has happened to you in the past, but what's going to happen to you now. One of the harder things with an affair is you on your own don't have much say as to what's going to happen with your relationship, because ultimately you're dependent upon the decisions that your partner makes. If they refuse to work on the relationship and to give up the affair, there's not a whole lot you can do. And so it's a really scary place to be. We don't like not having control, especially when it's over our own lives. And so one of the other behaviors that you may find you turn towards after the discovery of an affair is a desire for control. Now, this could be control over self. Sometimes people will obsessively control their diet or their exercise or create all kinds of rules and boundaries and structure around their lives. And that makes sense. You want to feel like you have dominion over your world. You may also find that you try to control your partner or your ex, and you might do that by obsessively tracking what they're doing, or by mandating that they follow certain rules and everything if you're trying to save the relationship. And the thing with control, it's kind of sneaky. Control feels good at first. It feels comfortable. And it has some benefits. I mean, I'm going to be the last one to tell you, oh, don't start an exercise routine. That's the worst. No, that's excellent for you. But you also can't control everything. And at some point, you're going to realize those limitations of the control. And that's when you really have to kind of face the reality a little bit more. And that's especially true if you're trying to control something that's uncontrollable. So obviously if you're trying to control your partner, because you can't. And also if you're trying to control something in yourself that refuses to be controlled. For example, how you feel. I've worked with several people who won't allow themselves to feel grief because they recognize now that their now ex-partner isn't a good person. And so rationally they tell themselves, I've lost somebody who's not a good person, therefore I shouldn't be sad. And so they try to tell their emotional self, don't be sad. You're not allowed to be sad. Well, rational brain gets that, emotional brain doesn't. And so it's one of those where control has its limitations. It's only going to go so far. So yes, you can try to control some things. It's going to help you feel better, but also recognize the limitations of control and accept those things that you cannot enforce. Like I said, after an affair, unfortunately, the cheater holds most of the power because they're the ones who ultimately determine if your relationship has a chance or not. And so you may be left in limbo. You may be left waiting. And life in a waiting room is no way to live at all. So often what we look for is we look for purpose. Now, before the affair, part of your purpose was probably as a partner. That was how you identified yourself and a large part of what motivated you in your decisions each day. And right now, you're probably not feeling that purpose all so much. So what often happens after an affair is purpose sort of transforms. And unfortunately, many of us find purpose, find identity as a victim. And that's not a good place to be, but it's definitely a comfortable place to be. It feels good to be told, oh, poor you, and coddled after somebody who professed their love has absolutely destroyed us. Now, obviously, this isn't a good purpose. It's not a healthy purpose. It's not something you want for the long term. Because if you're going to see yourself as a victim, that's what you're going to stay. And so, yeah, you need some purpose right now. You need something to keep you motivated when things are tough. But make sure that your purpose is something that is ultimately going to serve you, not something that's going to keep you back. Have you ever asked your partner, why did you do this? Or its corollary, how could you do this to me? Are those thoughts endlessly circling through your mind? Are you obsessing over them? I know I did, for way too long. Here's the thing, after we've been cheated on, we often view that elusive answer to the why question as some sort of magical key. A key that once we obtain it, it's going to unlock our future, whatever that might be. And so we get stuck on that question. We get stuck looking for understanding. But is there any answer that you could ever receive that will help, much less even make sense? Probably not. And so this is one of those we all have to kind of find peace with the non-answer to those questions in our own ways. And it's one that's going to take time. And you can't force it. You fixating on it isn't going to make it come any faster. And that's one of those things that I wish I could go back and tell the me that was causing herself all that undue suffering in that first year. To just let that question go for a while. Don't throw it away, but just, put it on the back shelf. Let it just sort of sit there for a while. Because I think for most of us, peace and some understanding comes after some of the initial emotion has faded. And trying to gain understanding when you're still in so much pain is pretty much impossible. So that whole trying to understand why, it's just causing you more grief right now that you don't need. So after an affair, most of us are plagued with obsessive thoughts, intrusive thoughts. Those thoughts they're coming from fear. They're coming from grasping. They're coming from shock and trying to understand how this could have happened and trying to piece together the life that we thought we had with the life that apparently we do have. And all of that obsessive energy needs an outlet. Now, if you're not careful, that outlet is gonna cause you a lot more pain because that outlet is going to fixate on your partner. It's going to fixate on their partner and all of those things that aren't going to help you. If you have looked at, their Facebook page and you've seen pictures, or you're endlessly reading the email that was the first bit of evidence that clued you into everything, ask yourself this: how do I feel after I've looked at those things? I doubt it's better. So why do we keep doing it? I wish I had an easy answer. I wish I could say, yeah, we're never going to act in such a way that causes ourselves more pain. But when we're desperate and when we're hurting, we don't always do what's best for us. So one of the things you can do is make sure you have an outlet, a healthy outlet for all of that excess energy. So that exercise that I talked about earlier about control, maybe it's a good thing. Because at least that's a good place to put all that energy. That's a whole lot better than checking out your partner's Facebook page. So no matter what you do, it's impossible for you to alleviate all of the pain associated with the affair. Nor is that your responsibility to undo everything that somebody else did to you. But what I challenge you to do is this: take a hard look at how you're responding to what has been done, and look for areas where maybe you're making it a little bit harder on yourself than you need to. And think about what you can do to ease the torment just a little bit.